Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show. I am Mike Daggs. He is Gerald Smith. Gerald, it is the Week 12 edition of the Weekly Kickoff Show. It's hard to believe we're already here in Week 12.
Yeah, and the thing about it is now the playoff picture is starting to take shape.
It is.
Especially with the teams definitely starting to separate themselves. It's, and I think we mentioned it last week. It's really starting to show who the contenders are, who the pretenders are, who's out of it, who's solidly in now. So it's been a good last couple weeks.
It has. A couple weeks ago we had a lot of really close games. Last week there were some blowouts. I mean, you never really know what you're going to get when you get into an SFL week. Even if you look at, like, in our Discord server, the Who You Got channel and how everybody votes on, which teams are going to win those games. And sometimes there's some lopsided ones and the community gets it wrong. And then there's other times where it's neck and neck and you just really don't know.
Yeah, look, and they always bet on us to lose. Look, they've been more right than wrong. Yeah. So I can't blame them, right? But look, the community's always been right in the thick of things. And for us, look, I mean, they know the league. Even with the change of platform that we've had, they see what everybody else is seeing. So they've been pretty good the last couple of weeks as far as picking.
Community is what makes the league tick. So the Week 12 schedule, why don't we jump right into it and let's get Week 12 started. So we've got actually a few games tonight, Gerald. Usually Friday's only a couple of games, but this Friday you get extra. You can thank the Easter Bunny, I guess. So we got 4 games tonight. We got one starting at 8 p.m., just a little bit away. San Diego Mavericks at the Canton Classics. Mark Lopez and John Warren getting the week started for us. For those that don't know, a little peek behind the curtain. Each week we have our weekly broadcast meetings, and we have a Call of the Week segment that our intern Tyler Falk puts together for us, and he's highlighted Mark quite a few times, and John in the Call of the Week, both doing a great job. Then a couple of schlubs doing the game right after that. 8:15 p.m. we got Motor City at Carolina. You and me.
Yeah, a couple of guys who are never on the Call of the Week.
Never once.
But
hey, I think we did get it once.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. What were we, like, honorable mention?
Although I think, what were we called last week? It was like listening to a podcast.
Listening to a podcast.
Talk about football.
Yeah. That's a compliment for me.
I think so. So
podcasts are interesting.
They are interesting. 10:15 p.m. we've got more football. So as Cameron Duty likes to say, get settled in because you're not going anywhere for the next, I think, like 5 hours from now. You're going to be here for quite a while if you want to watch all these games. 10:15 p.m. DC at Tulsa. Chris Curtis, Anthony Ellison kicking that one off. And then at 10:30 p.m., Los Angeles at Portland, the aforementioned Cameron Duty and Alex West back in the booth again.
I do think, just to kind of point out, I think this game is going to be one of the better games of this week. A couple of teams down on their luck this season, but I think this could potentially be the game of the week.
And we're going to make some picks on Los Angeles, Portland later on here in this show. So that wraps up the Friday slate. On Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, we get football started once again, and it's going to be Arizona at Minnesota. Speaking of potential, game of the week material, I know Arizona's been up and down this season. Minnesota's been really good, but you can never count out Arizona. And that's going to be Tyler and Brett back in the booth together for the first time in like 3 weeks.
It's been a while. I don't know if, Brett was, shoveling himself out of snow or whatever
they had
it was.
Fight.
Or he finally caught that moose he was chasing.
He might have caught a moose. I think that they had a fight and they were just like, I need some time and I need some space.
It's
but
possible.
Now they're back. Or I just didn't schedule them together. It's one of the two. I can't remember. At 6:45 p.m., we've got Denver at Mexico City. Go Aztecs. Colin and Rick on the call. That one may have been scheduled like that because I just really wanted to hear Colin and Rick do my game. But, listen, there's some perks to being the guy who does the schedule.
Rick hurt my heart last week.
You still haven't let that go?
I feel like the knife is still in my chest.
What did he do?
He said, I'm not a fan of hot sauce.
Which is weird. But
he's like, yeah, that's why they kicked you out of Louisiana and moved to New York because you don't like hot sauce. I mean, he ain't wrong, but
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Still love you, Rick. Rick Meter for the win.
You can't fault the guy for telling the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. And as our commissioner and producer, Cameron Irvine, says, he wants it to hurt. Rick wanted it to hurt too, I think.
Oh, he did. They succeeded.
9 p.m. Eastern time, we've got Louisiana at Fort Worth. Tyler back in the booth again, and Alex West back in the booth again. That one's going to potentially decide the South if Fort Worth gets the win. So we're counting on all of us in the South are counting on your Revs to pull a win out of your bag of or out of your Easter basket.
We're gonna be competitive.
Good.
And hopefully still away a win at home.
We'll see.
Fort Worth is tough to beat at home.
They are. 9:15 p.m. We've got Florida at Jacksonville. Camera duty back again with Rochelle Colston this time. That wraps up Sunday. On Monday, the Monday Night Spectacular, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Atlanta at Houston with Cameron Irvine, Charles Doherty.
Yeah, I guess they got rid of Phil and Mike.
Yeah, it was a 1 week thing. I don't want to repeat jokes.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, they'll go.
You don't want to do that too much.
Well, I mean, they came in and they were legit short-lived, but
short-lived. Yeah,
very fun.
They got Call of the Week last week.
That's a shame.
Yeah, and then they had to go just as quick as they came in. So it's like the Easter Bunny sneaking in, hiding the eggs, and running away. It's all he does. So why don't we start breaking down games? Let's talk about Arizona at Minnesota that I mentioned earlier on. I'm excited about this one. It's a Central Division battle. You got number 1 Minnesota versus number 3 Arizona. Minnesota, they've had a rock solid season. They've only lost 2 games so far, one of which was last week, against Baltimore. They were in Baltimore for that one. Now they're back home. Arizona, they've been up and down this season. They were shut out twice, as we all know. But otherwise, when they are losing games, they're only losing them by 1 score. So they've been competitive except for those shutouts. Minnesota, they'll maintain their number 1 spot no matter what happens this week. But spots 2, 3, and 4 in that division, they could all flip around. All those teams really close together. So why don't we break that one down? We'll start with Arizona and their offense.
Yeah, and Arizona escaped with a win last week in overtime, right? They had to kick a field goal to force overtime against a Portland team I thought was going to win that game, right? And the way they won it, look, it was a win nonetheless, but they got it done. And part of their success has been due to the running back and DJ Moses. He had one of his best, games of the season, rushing for over 120 yards along with a touchdown. And Ashley Jackson, right? Actually, she did well too. She threw for just under
almost 300.
Yeah, under 300 yards, had a touchdown, and she completed, most important thing, she completed 73% of her passes last week, right? So they have improved, on offense and have a top 10 total offense right now, coming into this week, right? So they would need more of that type of performance, versus Minnesota this week offensively to have a chance to win.
Agreed. And when we're talking about the defense, we need to see probably a little bit more out of them. They haven't really looked like if you want to call it the standard Eddie Gage defense that we've been used to in recent seasons.
Yeah. So and that's the thing, and I think Eddie can actually admit to that, right? They have not been where they wanted to be. Look, and they are ranked in the bottom half in most defensive categories, and are allowing nearly 23 points a game this season, right? They have struggled, and last week they struggled against a Portland offense, who, they allowed 27 points last week as well. But in their wins, right? Look, and Portland has only scored 14 points a game, and Arizona allowed them to score 27 points on them last week. So they will really need to improve on defense if they want to compete with Minnesota, right? Because I really don't think that we've actually seen Arizona play a complete game this season on both sides of the ball, especially after they reached 2 straight championships,
right?
A couple seasons back, right? Going to championship 2 times in a row. But that's what we're used to seeing from them, because they have been so consistent. We haven't seen them run that whole complete package offensively and defensively for a full game yet.
We haven't. And Minnesota, on the flip side, it's almost like they've been on cruise control this season. They're cruising right along. They're sitting at 7-2. They have the number 2 pass offense. They've got the number 7 scoring offense, number 4 in total offense overall in the SFL. Talk about that.
Yeah, look, and it's Johnny Reno. I know a lot of people not talking about. I think he's arguably the best quarterback, in the league right now, right? And he's ranked in top 10 in all QB categories coming into this week, right? And also on top of that, they've been improving in the run game with Colin Hart, right? And look, this is a crazy good stat offensively. They are number 1 in the red zone scoring this season, scoring 96% of the time they get into the red zone. So when they get down there, they're actually coming up with points.
For the longest time, they were 100% scoring. It was only a couple weeks ago that they finally, for the first time all season, didn't score.
So, and it was very likely, kind of like to do to the loss they had recently, because they lost the first game, won 7 straight, and then lost one of their the games recently. But look, they are underrated, right? Given the attention the two unbeaten teams are getting right now in the league, right? And this is one of the best teams the league has right now.
There.
And it's Minnesota sitting at 7-2.
Yeah, absolutely. And the defense has been pretty much just on par with the offense. They're doing just as good. Number 2 scoring defense in the league.
Yeah, look, and they also have the number 4 total defense in the league as well. Look, defensive tackle Max Knight. We called the game, and Max Knight was all over the place, right?
So size of a house.
Yeah, look, and he's
all over the place automatically just by sheer size.
He's a massive human being.
Yup.
So and he's been a menace on the defensive line. He has 6 sacks, and they have been extremely good on third down, and they've only been allowing 41% conversions on third down to their opponent. So and it's best in the league. So look, and they also get or they have a pass defense rate, which is second best in the league. They're knocking a lot of balls down to the ground. And why? Because they're able, and that's how you improve your third down conversions on defense. Stopping the opponents from actually getting first downs.
Right.
They're getting in the way, they're getting in the pass lanes, knocking the ball down. So look, and to me, they seem like they're already in postseason form. Yeah. So, and it can be a struggle for Arizona, this week going forward.
We'll see what they do at 6:30 p.m. Saturday. They will get that game kicked off. Let's talk about the one that you think has game of the week potential, Los Angeles at Portland. It's a Pacific Division showdown, right? Number 4 Portland versus number 5 Los Angeles. Those numbers are not flashy. They're at the bottom of their division. Neither team is happy with their season, obviously. Neither team has a shot of winning the division at this point. But they're both playing for pride at minimum, and both teams are coming off of a loss. One of them's going to get another win this week. So let's talk about that offense and defense of LA.
Yeah, and they have struggled across the board right throughout the season, offensively and defensively, right? They've struggled. It's no secret. They have one win on the season. Offensively, they're in the bottom half statistically, a lot. Quarterback Sully Richardson has struggled in passing. He's under 50% completions on the season, and he has 20 interceptions with only 11 touchdowns to go along with it, right? And the run game has struggled as well with Logan Jack. We all know what Logan Jack was, in recent memory, and this is his last season. I do believe he announced his retirement. We would have liked to seen him, like the Logan Jack of old kind of coming there, but they haven't been able to get him going, right? So them struggling in the run game has caused them to kind of struggle, right? And defensively, they're second to last in defense with points allowed and total defense. Last in the league in sacks as well. They only had 4 across 10 games, 4 sacks on the season from their defensive unit, right? But you know what LA brings? They play with pride in every single game. They've been in a lot more games than what people might think. So
especially as of late.
Right. So and they've been in a lot of games, right? I think they're going to finish the season strong, and they're going to be extremely competitive no matter who they play.
I agree. I think Rochelle Colston has sparked some new life into the team. They've got they got their first win finally, just a couple weeks ago. Weren't able to win last week, but they're going up against a team that's had similar production, so they've got just as good a shot as any that they've had this season. This week for Portland, you said that they could win versus Arizona.
I sure did,
and
I should, and they almost pulled off the upset.
They almost did.
It
was a hot take. You're like, Portland's going to win.
People,
and I'm thinking,
and I could just imagine what people had to say about that. But once that game played out, people were like, maybe he was right. Look, they probably forgot I even said it. But they have played. Look. And they almost
people
won.
Take notes from this show and they apply it when they're watching.
Oh yeah, and I was thrown out there in the chat by Mr. Eddie Gates. Says, yeah, Gerald's dead to me.
Yeah. I think he just said he defriended you. I don't think he was pretending you would die.
Same thing.
That's true.
I guess. Anyway, but they have played well in recent weeks.
They have.
Portland, right? So look, and they have played with pride, just like LA's been doing, right? Despite all the low statistical outputs that they have had on offense and defense, they have actually played with a lot of pride. And look, and it shows that they don't have any quit in them, right? Even though this is their last, go in the SFL, because I don't know if a lot of people even realize that Portland is going to be a team that they're folding, right? Yep. And things happen. But look, they still have no quit in them.
Right.
So and they're gonna finish how they need to be, but they are ranked last in offense.
And defense too. I mean,
and defense as well, right?
Yeah.
And they're ranked last in points allowed, last in total defense. They too struggle to press the quarterback. They only have 7 sacks on the season as well. So this, I think, is a perfect storm of a couple teams playing for pride.
Yeah.
That I think we're going to see some really good football from those two teams in the game that they play?
Oh, we'll find out. That game will be in the 10 o'clock block later tonight. So let's start talking about this 8 o'clock block. We've got a couple of games. Let's start with the one that you and I are going to call. Motor City at Carolina, 8:15 p.m., just about a half hour from now. We'll get that one kicked off. It's our first non-divisional matchup that we're going to talk about tonight, but there's still significant importance in this game, specifically to Carolina. Florida is 9-0 in that East Division, so they're at the top. But meanwhile, Atlanta, Charleston, and Carolina are all at 5 wins apiece. So they're all right there in the middle. So even though this game it's not an East Division game, Carolina, they need this win. They already have losses to Atlanta and Charleston, so they need to get out ahead in that win column. Being at the same amount of wins, they're going to be below both of those teams. So they've only got one game after this as well. They got a bye week next week and then just one game to finish out the season. So, by the way, that's against 9-0 Florida in Florida. So they need this win tonight.
Yeah,
they need it. Motor City, they're at 2-8. They're all but out of the picture overall. But they could play spoiler here, and I know they'd love to do it. So let's start with Motor City and talk about their offense. They haven't really had a good season offensively, but
and they rank near the bottom in almost every offensive category,
right?
But I mean, quarterback King Jackson is having a decent rookie season, right? We talked about it many times when we broke down them that they have a very young team. The offense has struggled all season, but a young team still has tons of pride to play for. I hate keep saying that for all these teams that they're out of it, but it's not out of it. Look, you can actually play and you can actually start building on, start the building blocks for next season going forward, right? You see what your players can do.
Some new things coaching wise.
Right. So, and you can see like what can maximize your output, right? Yeah. So you're not such in like, hey, look, we got to win to make it, right?
Right.
Everybody wants to win, right? But you're sitting at 2-8. Those guys can actually come in and they can actually make some adjustments, see what's going to work, and then see how your team is going to respond with a different type of game plan offensively.
Yeah, and defensively, they give up the third most points per game with 28 points per game. But talk about more about that defense.
Yeah, and they have the second worst third down defense in the league, right? They're giving up 72% on third downs. Look, and they
just gasses that defense.
Yeah, it does, and that's thing. Like they just keep on the field, and their offense is not able on the field to do much of anything either. So, but like I said, they're still young, they're still figuring it out. But one thing that I like that they have Mo Biggins.
They do have Mo Biggins.
They have Mo Biggins at defensive tackle. Love that name. He wins the name game for me this season.
Yeah.
Mo Biggins, the rookie defensive tackle, doing. He hadn't had a whole lot of statistical stuff, but he's coming. I like the name Mo Biggins.
And it's you only can get better from there. Especially for a rookie player like King Jackson at quarterback, like Mo Biggins on the defense. They've got pieces. It's just about those pieces continuing to progress, continuing to get better. And the team will get better as a whole around them. So let's get into Carolina. Like I said, this game has a lot of meaning to Carolina. They've won 3 straight games, but all 3 games were with 3 win or less teams.
Right. So and that's a thing. Look, does it say? Look, you can only play who's in front of you, right? So I don't think that's a discredit to them. It's just something of note, right? When they played higher talent, they kind of tend to struggle, right? So
this is another team with less than 3 wins,
right? So look, and on paper you say, hey, look, they're going to come out with a win, but as we know, a win is a win. You get that win, it just stacks it for you, right? So Matt South has been playing extremely well lately, right? So he has 6 touchdowns and completing nearly 70% of his passes during the 3-game win streak.
Yeah.
Ike McBride has been productive as well, averaging over 100 yards per game over that same span. So look, they're also number 1 in third down offense, converting 61% of their conversion. So the offense is getting hot at the right time, but offensively they're going to have to put that together. If just say for instance, hey, look, they win this week, they're going to have to put that together next week as well offensively.
Yeah. And defensively, they really, they haven't been overly spectacular, but they have gotten the job done. Earlier on this season, you talked about just how bad.
I trashed them.
You trashed them.
I did. I got to own it.
How bad that defense was.
And
we called that next game, and that defense was like, oh, we're bad?
Yeah.
And boom, they came out swinging. What do you think you're going to see tonight?
Well, and they even put it to my Revs. I think they picked us off 3 times last week. So, and Yeah, so I didn't like it. I'm sitting there watching the game, and yeah, they are 100%, right?
Look at that defense.
So it's like, hey, look, they've actually done it right, and they've actually forced 6 turnovers over the last 3 games, which has helped them, win games and gain momentum when they need it, right? I think they really are looking at their 4th straight win, and they are going to have to, in my opinion, best a Florida team next week if they win this week to get themselves in the playoff. I think a loss today, no matter what they do at Florida, me personally, I think it knocks them out. They have to win this week, and they're going to have to win next week.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's actually a bye week next week, and then they head into Florida. But still, if they don't get this win, they already go down to a losing record going up against an undefeated team.
And they actually came into Louisiana last week, right? They came in our house, and they came in with the playoff mentality, and they showed it. Yep. They didn't start out really hot. We started out pretty good, thought we was pretty comfortable, but they stayed the course, played their game, and they came away with the win.
So let's talk about this week's kickoff game. San Diego at Canton. What can we say about Canton that hasn't been said all around the league by any show that might be done? They're good. They're a good team. They're number 1 in points scored. They're number 1 in points allowed. They're number 1. I actually started counting up the categories for my notes, and I got to about 28. I ran out of fingers, toes, and Pez that I was using to help count, so I had to stop. They're number 1 in darn near every category imaginable. They're just having a phenomenal season. San Diego, they've also had a good season. Not obviously as good. Nobody has. But San Diego lost 2 games right out of the gate. And then they've been 5-2 ever since.
Oh, yeah.
That's a darn fine record. They've got a lot riding on this one. They're number 2 in the Pacific behind the 6-4 Seattle Nemesis, and they're right ahead of the 5-5 Vancouver Legion. So barely at that number 2 spot. They need to win to at least stay where they are, and if they get a win, they actually have a shot at the number 1 spot in the Pacific. Not to mention their strength of victory will just skyrocket.
It'll go through the roof.
So can San Diego be the team that finally figures out what it takes to best Canton? Let's talk about their offense. It's a sneaky good offense.
It is. It's a sneaky good offense. Like you just mentioned, they're number 8 in total offense with the number 6 rushing attack, led by Hunter McWaffle, right? Quarterback Johnny Pickler is playing pretty good as well. Yeah. He's completed nearly 6% of his passes, which is 5th best in the SFL, right? Not a whole lot of quarterbacks can say that, especially the quarterback of my team. We're I don't even want to talk about it, but
in a lot of San Diego, lives and dies by the hand of Johnny Pickler. I know you even jokingly called them the other day to me. You called it the San Diego Johnny Picklers.
Yeah, I do because look, look, I know I've had Johnny Pickler on my team. Look, whenever he comes to your team, he owns it, he embraces it, he fires everybody up, and I did it. I call him, hey, it's the San Diego Johnny Picklers. I say it. So San Diego Johnny Picklers, you can mark it down. But it's what we got. But also Johnny has also found 5 different pass catchers for touchdowns.
Right.
The ball distribution that he's had, right, coupled with his coach and Mike O'Neill put him in a position to succeed along with the receivers. He's got 5 different people that he's throwing touchdown passes to.
Yeah, and that kind of plays into it. That's I think why you call him a sneaky good offense, is because none of their receivers, like look at Tulsa, Gabriel Manning jumps out on the stat sheet. He is that receiving core. Obviously, there's other receivers there too, but his stats double everybody else's. Whereas on a team like San Diego, or if you look at the stats for Mexico City, we try to follow that same sort of mold. None of our receivers or tight ends have top tier stat lines because we try to spread that ball around, and Pickler's always been really good about that.
Yeah, and it actually makes it has the defense looking at everybody instead of just one particular player, because if you can shut down one particular player, it can actually change the whole dynamic of your offense.
We've talked about that with Tulsa.
Yeah, and then you kind of start to struggle a little bit.
So let's talk about the defense. They've been a huge part of the success this season. In the wins, they've only allowed 14 points per game on season. They average only 23 points per game.
Yeah, look, and they have the number 5 total defense along with the number 6 pass defense.
Yeah.
And it's led by defensive end Biff Markham, who actually is number 3 in the SFL with 6 sacks on the season.
Yeah.
Very solid all-around defenders on the squad. They're always there. Like I said, they don't have these crazy flashy numbers. They are what you want in like a really complete team. They just put it together and win. Some people will get the accolades some games, and somebody completely different will get it to next. So they're actually playing pretty well. The defense is good, and the offense, I think, is just good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Canton. I mean, they're good on both sides of the ball. They're number one in basically everything. Like I mentioned, they're number one in points per game. They're number one in rush offense, number one in total offense.
Yeah, and then you got Logan Lee, who's number one in a gazillion touchdowns on the season, right? A gazillion,
I think it's 12.
Yeah, it's, you know what I mean. But it's almost like at this point, everybody's like, when you talk about Canton, it's like there's absolutely no negatives you can say whatsoever. Why? Because they do everything just almost perfect,
super efficient,
and it's all, in my opinion, that their offense, as good as it is, even though they have all these high accolades on offense, it's all set up because of their defense.
It's the defense all day long. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're allowing on average 4 points a game. You and I were looking at it right before our show started. They've allowed a grand total of 2 touchdowns through 9 games.
It's
how do you beat that?
It's ridiculous. It's just something that we're probably never ever going to see again in the league, because once somebody figures it out, they're going to start to find it. Hey, look, how far are we going to get before somebody figures it out? Is it this season? Everybody's already talking about Canton versus Florida coming up pretty soon. So look, and do they get that far? And does Florida pick them off, or does San Diego do it? I do think that San Diego has the tools. I think they do too. But what they're going to have to do, and I've said this many times off the air, what somebody is going to have to do is get a touchdown league on Canton and force them in a situation that they have never been in before. If a team can do that, I think they stand the best chance to knock them off. Yep. But if they aren't allowed to do it, they allow Canton to get ahead of them. That defense is just going to just smother your offense.
The best shot for San Diego will be if just luck falls the right way,
and they have to play clean. They cannot turn the ball over.
They can get a touchdown on their opening drive, and maybe their defense capitalizes with a turnover, maybe even a pick six, maybe a fluke play like a kick return for a touchdown, or a fumble, scoop and score, something. They need something to happen, just like you said, to get them out front. Once they're out front, they can try to maintain. Playing from behind, I don't think any team's going to beat Canton.
No.
So let's talk about our picks. Get into our picks this week. Currently on the season, I'm regaining my lead.
You are.
20-11 is my current record compared to your 16-15. You had such a good run.
I did.
3 weeks in a row, you got every game right, and I didn't. You caught up.
I'm sandbagging.
You had a losing record.
I'm sandbagging.
Is that what you're doing?
I'm sandbagging again. I'm trying to get your lead. Like, I won, and then I'm gonna just close
right
the
at
gap.
the end.
Yes.
Yeah, because we're gonna make picks all the way up until including the championship. There's still a lot of games left. There still are. But last week you picked Alamo City, Portland, in Florida. I picked Tulsa, Arizona, and Florida, and ultimately the winners were Tulsa, Arizona, and Florida. So this week I got to go. And
feels good?
Yeah, it feels good. Yeah, I'm going to do it again, too. I'm going to do it again this week.
Yeah, it does. Feel good.
So let's talk about our picks this week. We'll start with Arizona at Minnesota, the game that I think is going to be closer than others might be thinking. Who do you got?
I got Minnesota. I just think they're too much on a roll. Arizona, there's so much inconsistencies for me there to pick them this week, especially against the division leader who is kind of hot right now, even with the recent loss. I think Minnesota takes it.
All right, well, I'm going, maybe this will be the hot take for this week. I'm going with Arizona. Why? Because I've picked Arizona 3 times this season, and they've never let me down. Not like some other teams that I won't mention. Forward! A little fold or something.
You should have picked them this week. We should have did that one. You could have picked Fort Worth and maybe caused them to lose.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go with Arizona. Eddie Gage, you never know what he's going to be able to cook up and get into that playbook, and I don't want him to defriend me like he defriended you. Love you, Eddie Gage. So, gotta pick Arizona. He's double defriending you this week. That's the thing.
There he is.
LA Portland, your game of the week. Who do you got?
I love Rochelle Colston. I do, but I am picking Portland. Right? She's my fellow states person, from Louisiana. So, but I had to pick Portland. I think they showed me some stuff last week, and I think they're still going to continue that at home this week.
I'm going to go with Los Angeles. I'm going to go with the road team again for 2 games in a row. They've been in games as of late. Sully Richardson, I know when you were breaking down his stats, talking about his completion percentage, it's not that great. If you look at his other stats, he's up there in the top 10 in multiple categories. You look at Portland, they're not. Portland, this is their last season. They've announced that they're folding. Call it maybe the lame duck mentality. They're on their way out. I don't know if they're going to try to game plan as hard as Rochelle's going to game plan. I'm giving it to Los Angeles. We'll see who gets that win. San Diego at Canton. Who do you got?
I so bad want to pick San Diego
for
this. I do so bad because I do think they have the tools to do it, but I just can't. I love you, Johnny Pickler. I love you, Mike O'Neill. I love the San Diego Johnny Picklers, but I can't pick against Canton right now with the way they're playing.
And neither can I. Canton is probably going to get that win, but we'll see what happens because that game's kicking off in just a few seconds. So that's all the time that we've got from here. Gerald, it breaks my heart, but next week we won't have the weekly kickoff show because I decided to take vacation mid-season. I'm sorry to all of our faithful fans. We'll be back for week 14 when we're talking about the final push for the playoffs. I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be a great show. Maybe we'll even get some extra time. Maybe we can try to snaggle an extra 15 minutes or so.
I will have a lot to say.
I bet you will, and so does everybody watching. Hey, that's all the time that we got. Week 12, Matt Willson, weekly kickoff show. I'm Mike. He's Gerald. Thanks for joining us. The San Diego Mavericks take on the Canton Classics right after this. Don't go anywhere. Sweet. All right, we'll let you get that game started, and we'll talk to you in 15.
I almost changed it the last one. I almost did it.